I'm hearing a lot about $57 billion in fossil fuel subsidies being dished by federal Labor. It comes from an Australia Institute report. So let's look at the $49.5 billion that comes from the federal government. The report says about $8 billion of this is projects contracted by the Morrison government. The current government's actually cancelled about $2 billion worth of projects that weren't yet contracted. Most of it, $41 billion over 4 years, or about $10 billion a year, is the fuel tax credit. Every time you buy petrol or diesel in Australia, you pay about 20 cents a litre in fuel tax. If you don't much use public roads, if you're a miner, a farmer, remote community, you can get this back, and that's the fuel tax credit. There's absolutely an argument that the $3 billion a year in this credit that goes to mining companies, and especially the $1 billion a year that goes to coal mining companies, should be capped or reduced by the federal government. And they've actually reduced it by about 3 cents a litre for heavy vehicles, which covers these mining companies. For the rest of it, going to farmers and remote communities, about $7 billion a year, it's hard for the government just to turn it off without causing a lot of hardship. And calling this a fossil fuel subsidy is like calling rent assistance a landlord subsidy. So why does this matter? Well, if you're making a political argument that Labor loves fossil fuels, I get why Greens and Teals might run this. But it's really misleading, and it distracts from the things that the government really can do and is doing to reduce emissions. So for the mining companies, they're subject to the safeguard mechanism, which will make them reduce emissions each year. For farmers and remote communities, there are programs to encourage decarbonisation, which will reduce their dependence on fossil fuels. For the rest of us, fuel efficiency standards for our cars will hopefully mean that we don't have to use as much fuel in the future, either because we electrify or we just have more efficient cars. So let's ditch the political arguments and just focus on reducing emissions.